The sound of the coffee machine was the first thing that greeted her every morning. It sputtered, hissed, and filled the kitchen with that familiar, comforting scent that felt like a small piece of normal in a world that kept changing too fast. Linda Hayes stood by the counter, her robe hanging loose, the morning sunlight slipping quietly through the lace curtains. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the mug, not from weakness, but from time. 63 years old, alone, and living in the same house she'd bought with her husband 40 years ago. The house had become quieter over the years. The laughter of her kids had faded into memory, the phone calls became less frequent, and the walls carried whispers of a life that once felt too busy to appreciate. She had lived long enough to learn that silence isn't peaceful until you make peace with it. Her husband, Carl, had passed 6 years ago. Heart attack, quick and merciless. He'd been mowing the lawn that morning. 1 second he was complaining about the old mower, and the next he was gone. Just gone. Linda still remembered the color of his shirt, light blue, the one she'd told him made his eyes look kind. The paramedics took him away, but his laughter never left the yard. Sometimes on summer afternoons, she still swore she could hear it blending with the wind. She didn't move away after he died. Everyone said she should. Sell the house, Linda. It's too big for one person. But what would she do in an apartment somewhere near the city? Watch strangers through thin walls? Listen to traffic instead of crickets? No, the house on Sycamore Lane was her map of memories. Every corner carried a story, every creak a whisper from a different time. Her neighbors had changed over the years. Young families came and went, new names appeared on mailboxes, but Linda stayed. She mowed her lawn, baked cookies on Sundays, and pretended she liked television just to fill the space. She didn't complain, didn't talk much, didn't expect anything, until one morning she received a letter that wasn't hers. It was addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Carter, the young couple who'd recently moved into the yellow house across the street. But the mailman had slipped it into her box by mistake. She looked at the envelope, hesitated, then decided to walk it over. When she knocked on their door, a woman in her 30s answered. Messy bun, flour on her cheek, holding a baby on her hip. "Oh, you must be Mrs. Hayes," she said, smiling brightly. "I've been meaning to come say hello. I'm Emily. This is my little boy, Noah." Linda smiled back, awkward but warm. "The mailman mixed up our letters," she said, holding out the envelope. Emily laughed. "He does that a lot. Thank you." The smell of cinnamon drifted from inside the house. "I'm making banana bread," Emily added. "Would you like to come in for coffee?" It had been months since someone invited her in anywhere. Her instinct said no. She didn't want to intrude. But Emily's kindness felt genuine, and something inside her softened. "Coffee sounds nice," she said. That morning changed everything. Inside, the house was full of color and mess. Toys on the floor, music playing softly, sunlight streaming through open blinds. Linda sat at the kitchen table, feeling a strange ache she couldn't name. It wasn't jealousy. It was nostalgia. She watched Emily move around the kitchen, humming, the baby babbling in his high chair, and she saw her younger self. The same chaos, the same tired joy. "You have a beautiful home," Linda said. Emily smiled. "It's a work in progress. We just moved here from Boston. My husband's a teacher, and I'm trying to start a little home bakery. It's been crazy." Linda nodded, sipping her coffee. "I remember those days." From that day on, Emily visited often. Sometimes she brought bread or muffins, sometimes just company. She started calling Linda Miss L, and made sure to wave every morning when she pushed the stroller past her porch. It was strange how quickly the house began to feel alive again. The smell of fresh bread mixed with coffee, the sound of the baby's laughter echoing faintly across the street. Linda started leaving her blinds open a little wider. One afternoon, Emily came over crying. Her husband had lost his job. The bills were stacking up. She didn't know how they'd manage. Linda listened quietly, the way women her age knew how to, without interrupting, without trying to fix everything, just being there. "Do you know what I did when Carl got laid off in '92? Linda asked softly. "I made lists of everything we still had instead of everything we lost. It kept me sane." Emily wiped her tears, smiling weakly. "You always know what to say." Linda laughed. "I don't know anything, sweetheart. I just lived long enough to realize life doesn't stop being unfair. You just get better at dancing through it." The next morning, Linda left a small envelope on Emily's porch. Inside was $200 cash and a note that said, "Banana bread tastes better when you're not worried about rent." Emily tried to return it, but Linda refused. "It's not charity," she said. "It's what neighbors used to do before everyone started pretending they didn't need anyone." The weeks rolled by. Winter came. The air grew heavy with frost. Linda's knees hurt more than usual, but her heart felt lighter. Every day had rhythm again. She started keeping a small journal. Nothing fancy, just short thoughts and pieces of memory. One page read, "It's funny how loneliness can fade quietly, like fog burning off in the morning sun." Then, one January morning, Linda slipped on ice while taking out the trash. The fall wasn't bad, but she hit her shoulder hard. By the time Emily saw her limping across the yard, she'd already bruised her arm purple. Emily rushed her to the clinic. "You could have broken something," Emily scolded gently. "I'm tougher than I look," Linda grinned. That night, Emily insisted Linda stay at her house for dinner. Her husband Jake was cooking spaghetti, the baby throwing noodles everywhere. Linda laughed so hard she nearly cried. It was the kind of chaos she hadn't felt in years. Loud, messy, human. When she got home, her house felt warmer, even though it was empty. She sat by the window, holding a cup of cocoa, and whispered to herself, "You'd like them, Carl. You really would." The following week, Emily told her they were planning to move. Jake had found a new job out of state. Linda nodded, pretending not to feel the ache. "That's wonderful news," she said, even though her chest tightened. "Promise me you'll visit," Emily said, hugging her tightly. "Only if you promise to bake me that banana bread again," Linda replied. The day they left, Linda stood on her porch, waving as their car disappeared down Sycamore Lane. The silence returned, heavier this time. For days, she didn't turn on the radio, didn't open the curtains. The house seemed to sigh again, tired of losing people. Then, 1 week later, she found a package at her door. Inside was a small wooden box and a letter. It was from Emily. "Miss L, thank you for being the neighbor everyone wishes they had. We left something for you. It's Noah's handprint. So you'll never forget us. Love, Emily and Jake." Inside the box was a small clay imprint of the baby's tiny hand. Linda pressed her fingers into it, tears falling freely now. "You didn't have to remind me," she whispered. "I never could forget." Months passed. The seasons changed again. The tulips bloomed, the air softened, and the neighborhood carried on with its small-town rhythm. Linda started gardening again, just to feel the earth against her skin. One morning, a new car parked in Emily's old driveway. A woman stepped out, maybe late 50s, wearing jeans and a wide-brimmed hat. She waved at Linda. "You must be my neighbor. I'm Caroline." Linda waved back. "Welcome to the street." Caroline smiled. "I hope you like coffee. I make a strong pot every morning." That line made Linda laugh. "Then we'll get along just fine." Over the next few weeks, Caroline became another chapter in Linda's quiet story. She was recently divorced, trying to start fresh. They talked for hours about everything: ex-husbands, growing kids, bad recipes. Some evenings they'd sit on the porch with coffee and share memories like trading cards. Caroline once asked, "Do you ever get tired of starting over?" Linda looked at her, the corners of her mouth curving gently. "No, I think that's the point. You keep starting over until life feels full again." She realized something then. She wasn't waiting for her life to return. She was living it. The love she'd shared, the people she'd met, the memories she carried, none of it had left her. They just changed shape. As summer deepened, Linda began volunteering at the local library. She read children's books on Tuesdays, baked cookies for staff meetings, and even started a memory cafe for seniors. People started calling her Miss Linda again, just like they used to decades ago. The town that once felt distant began to feel like home all over again. Sometimes, late at night, she'd still talk to Carl, out loud, softly. "You know," she'd say, smiling, "I finally figured it out. Love doesn't leave when people do. It just finds new corners to hide in." She didn't hear an answer, but she never expected one. The quiet was no longer heavy. It was gentle, familiar. A friend she'd finally made peace with. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves turned gold, Linda stood on her porch, holding her coffee, watching the neighborhood wake up. A group of kids rode bikes down the street, laughing loudly. Caroline waved from her garden. Somewhere a car engine started, a dog barked, and the air smelled faintly of maple syrup from the diner at the corner. Life, she thought, was still happening. Right here. Right now. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was watching it from the sidelines. She was part of it. Quietly, deeply, beautifully part of it. She smiled, took a slow sip of her coffee, and whispered to herself, "This is enough."